So I just want to say thank you again to Sarah and her team. What you didn't get to see was at 6 o'clock this morning when the power went out, her team went into scramble mode and they had battery operated speakers up here. They rewired everything and they were ready to go. We were not going to cancel service. Amen? A little bit of dark's not going to hurt us, right? He's all the light that we need. Power came back on about 10 minutes before 8, so to see what they pulled off in the meantime, and we're going to just keep celebrating. And it doesn't matter if the church burned down. We meet in the parking lot, right? Because he is worthy. And I really appreciated what Sarah said about thank you for the power outage. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scene that is just, they feel like little fires, if I'm being honest. My daughter came to me as service started and said, "Dad, the women's bathroom is flooded." I'm about to preach. What am I? Am I looking a little flushed? Sorry, can we just wipe that one out? What do you say we get started before I get any deeper here? So we are actually going to start off by watching a little video. So let's get that started.
Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. If you're ever on fire, just do what you're told. It's the best way to stay safe and keep in control. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. First, you stop where you are, don't move around. Then you drop to the ground and roll around. Your arms around your face, put your head down and keep rolling till the fire's out. Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll. If you're ever
So I would like to officially apologize because that song will be stuck in your head the rest of the day. I don't want to make too much light of it, but how many kids were actually catching on fire that they had to make a national PSA out of it? Did you hear what happened to Billy? Yeah, he was in math class and he just caught on fire. Susie last week, but stop, drop, and roll. We have the answer, right? Does anybody remember this growing up? Like it sticks in your head, doesn't it? Maybe they rolled out the big cart with the TV and VCR on it. Wasn't that the best feeling? Like you were just like, yes. Maybe they had a firefighter actually dressed up in his full gear come and share with you and help you understand that when you are on fire and you start to run away, it actually just feeds the flame. That we need to stop, drop, and roll to put that fire out. Okay, Mike, what does this have to do with the Bible and today's message? Today we're going to apply something similar. I'm calling it the spiritual version of stop, drop, and roll. And it's fall, trust, and rise. Say that with me. Fall, trust, and rise. When it feels like the flaming arrows of this world are just coming at you, we need to fall, trust, and rise. Sometimes those flames come from the enemy, like Paul tells us about in Ephesians 6:16, I believe. And those flaming arrows are meant to attack our faith. But sometimes the fire is just a part of this broken world. It's a diagnosis. It's a hard phone call. It's a marriage that's on the rocks. It's a child that's in crisis. Any one of these things can make it feel like your world's just on fire sometimes. So my question to you this morning is, what's your fire? What do you need from God? What do you need God's help with this morning? Because we all need his help with something. Maybe it's financial help. Maybe it's healing. Maybe you're seeking forgiveness. Sometimes our hearts aren't just heavy for the needs in our life, but they're hard for the people around us, those that we love. Maybe your heart's heavy for the healing of a loved one or the salvation of a friend. Here's what I want to ask you. Have you presented this desire for help to God? Have you gone to God and said, I need help in this area? Some of you, yeah, no problem. Yeah, I do that, Mike. Some of you say no, and I'm amazed at how often I hear this. God's too big. He doesn't care about my little problems. So I don't pray about it. Or other people have it a lot worse than me. So I just don't feel like I can go to God for help when I know there's people that are worse off. Their fires are bigger. So you don't go to God. Some of you have asked for help and are just waiting. And that waiting period can get really hard. Some don't ask because they're afraid of the answer. Well, what if I ask God for help in this area and it means change? It means I have to change something, or something in my world's going to be different. And as much as I want to be free from this, I have to admit I'm kind of comfortable where I'm at in my life, even in the hard times. But what's it going to mean if I go to God and ask him for the help and he brings about that change? So today we're going to look at two different people from two different walks of life as they seek Jesus' help with their own personal fires. And as these two people are going to help us see, my prayers this morning, two people are going to help us see how it is we can live out our faith and seek God in our times of need. So instead of a stop, drop, and roll this morning, we're going to do a what? Fall, trust, and rise. So let's look at the first step, and that is to fall, to humble ourselves. Both Jairus and the bleeding woman came before the Lord, and they fell at his feet. I don't want us to miss this. That act of coming before Jesus and falling at his feet would have cost both of them dearly. You have Jairus. He was a synagogue leader. His title, what he did, he ran the day-to-day operations. He made sure that the worship was orderly. He decided who was going to read from the Torah. He was the day-to-day guy, the manager, if you will. He was somebody that people looked up to in that community. The religious leaders at that time, the rabbis in the synagogue, they were not fans of Jesus, were they? And they were very vocal about it. If you remember a couple of weeks ago even, it came to the point where they were even saying that Jesus was demon-possessed. And now you have one of their own, one of the leaders in the synagogue, the day-to-day boss, and he's falling at Jesus' feet. The Greek word that Mark uses for fall is pipte. It's P-I-P-T-E-I, pipte. Now, I want us to have a proper perspective here, because pipte is not a polite bow. Jairus didn't come to Jesus and, excuse me, sir, can I get a minute? No. Pipte means you hit the ground. Full prostration, your face in the dirt, your robes are all dusty. Everything that his title meant to him, everything that office gave him, all his political capital, gone in the moment that he hit the ground. Pipte. Here's what brought it home for me. That word pipte was the same word that Matthew used to describe Jesus in the garden as he prayed. Full-heartedly saying, Jesus, take this cup from me. And in that same posture, now you have Jairus coming before Jesus and wholeheartedly saying, I need your help. For Jairus to humble himself before Jesus and to fall on his face before him, acknowledging his need for Jesus' help, to put it lightly, that would have been frowned on by the religious community. In no uncertain terms, he is committing social and political suicide. Now, the bleeding woman, she was an outcast. Just to come in contact with her made you unclean. For her to go into that crowd to seek Jesus, Jesus even says, who's touching me? And he's like, disciples, everyone's touching you. You're in this crowd. For her to go in there in that unclean state, that would have upset a lot of people. But if we're being honest, when the world feels like it's closing in around us and we don't have any other options, when we're on fire, if you will, that's when we tend to run to Jesus. I wish we could say that we did it all the time, that we brought him all of our needs. But sadly, it's when we're in that place of desperation that we go to him. When we seem to be at rock bottom, then I'm going to run to Jesus and humble ourselves. What does that even mean to humble ourselves, though? Let me show you a starting point. We all have this image of God that we carry around with us. There's a quote that I refer to often by A.W. Tozer. It says, the single most important thing about a person is what comes to their mind when they think about God. Because he knew that in our hearts, we all carry this image of what God looks like. But then we come across difficulty in our lives, and sometimes there's this battle of justification of what we think God will help us with and not help us with. And it's based on our circumstances, our insecurities, our guilt, our shame, our pride. When we do that, essentially what we're doing is we're trying to put God in a box, but he's too big to fit in that box. So we try to make him smaller with our broken theology. We start to define God by what we think he's capable of or what we think he'll will or won't do for us. We have this image of God and say, well, God doesn't care about this. It's just a little thing. Other people have bigger problems. I have done so much wrong in my life. Maybe God's just mad at me. That's why this is happening. I've used up all of my grace, all of God's grace and mercy. I just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And lie after lie fill our head, and pretty soon this image of God doesn't look anything like the true image of God. And this is what we're carrying around with us. So what does it mean to humble ourselves? It means we see God for who he really is. We take ourselves out of the equation. We stop trying to justify what we think God will and won't do based on our broken theology. We strip ourselves of our pride and our titles, our insecurities, our guilt, and our shame. Essentially, we stop making it about us and we make it about him and who he is, even if it costs us. We fall before him, acknowledging all that he truly is. But I want us to notice what humility is not in this text. It's not Jairus saying that he's unimportant. He's not come to this place where he's deciding, you know what, I'm not important. He is important. He's a leader in the synagogue. It's not the woman concluding that she is worthless. She has tried for 12 years to fix what's broken. Biblical humility is not self-obliteration or self-erasure. It's the willingness to set down what the world has taught you to hold up so that your hands are free to reach for Jesus. So as we talk about that humility and our pride, I have to ask, what posture are you at this morning? What posture are you maintaining? Is it a posture of competence? Like having it all together? Of being the one that helps rather than being the one that needs help? I can't look weak. I'm a Christian. I'm supposed to have it all together. I'm supposed to, here it is. Or is it the opposite where you feel like you're just not worthy? What's keeping you from falling at his feet? Cornerstone, let us kneel. Kneel before him, acknowledging all that he is. Because we have a God that not only asks us to bring his concerns, but he longs for us to do that. He wants us to be in his presence no matter what your insecurity or the lies of this world are going to throw at you. And I say this in almost every sermon, but this is more true than what I feel. I need to go to the truth of what this says about my relationship with God versus my own insecurities and thinking that, oh, he's mad at me, he doesn't want to talk to me today. Cornerstone, let's humble ourselves, carry a right image of who God has proven himself to be over generation after generation, and fall at his feet. So we have Jairus falling at the feet of Jesus saying, my daughter is dying. I need you to come and help her. And then what we have is what would be interpreted by some as an interruption when the woman comes into the story, but it's actually the opposite. If we look at it, we're being shown that Jesus doesn't care about titles or labels or status. We have two people that are absolute polar opposites in society, in finances, in everything. And yet they're at common ground at Jesus' feet. This wasn't an interruption in the story, that was intentional. Look at verse 24. A large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman that was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. So a little bit of context for you here. The woman clearly has lost everything. She spent 12 years seeking doctors, spending all that she had. So at one point, it's safe to say that she had some means. She had some money just to be able to spend all of this for 12 years of trying to get better. But she was considered ceremonially unclean permanently. She couldn't just go to the pools and cleanse herself. She wasn't allowed to go to temple. If she was walking down the street and people were coming towards her, she would have had to get out of the way, and they would have done the same because she was considered contagious. And just to touch her meant that you were unclean as well, and you wouldn't be able to go to temple or participate in feasts or festivals like Passover. For 12 years, this woman was not allowed to attend a single redemptive festival God had given Israel to remember him by. For 12 years. Put yourself in that position physically and emotionally right now. You're just done. You've exhausted every possible remedy. You're broke. You're alone, shunned, outcast. And then you hear about Jesus. And he gives you just this little bit of hope. And you think to yourself, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, then I would be healed. Man, that is faith. But some of you are in that place this morning where you're just feeling alone and lost, and you know that Jesus is the answer, and you know you need to go to him, but you're being held back by your shame or your guilt or your insecurities or just listening to the lies of this world. And you're thinking that he doesn't want you near him. And others don't want me here either. You feel unclean. So years ago, before I was on staff, I was in my office, and Bruce came by and he brought me a cup of coffee. Pretty nice day. A little Starbucks to halfway through the day. And as he was leaving, one of the gals in the office, her name was Sochi, she asked, well, who was that? I said, oh, it's my pastor. And she commented, yeah, I should probably go to church. 10 minutes later, she's in my office weeping and praying to accept the Lord. I connected her with my wife immediately, and my wife went on to disciple her for a long time. But of course, we invited her to church, and to come to church, that was a big deal. It was a big deal because she was scared to death that she wouldn't be accepted. Would she even be allowed to come in through those doors? Because Sochi had tattoos going up and down her arms and on her neck, and she had piercings in her face, and her hair was a different color every day. And she struggled with, am I even going to be allowed to walk in the doors? They're going to take one look at me and, man, say, you're unclean. She was so scared that the Sunday morning that she was going to come to church, She called me 3 times between her house and the church. She just kept pulling the car over and saying, I can't do it, Mike. I know that I'm supposed to. I know that I need to get to church. I know that's the right thing, but I'm just scared. I won't be accepted. She made it to church that day. And I want to thank you, Cornerstone, that you were overwhelmingly accepting of her and showed her nothing but love. Her fear was just that. It was a fear. It wasn't the truth. But sometimes we do this with God. We get in this desperate need, and you know that I need to get to Jesus, but maybe everything's not right in my life. And so we have this fear of approaching him. And we know that's exactly what we need to do, but that fear is exactly that. It's a fear. It's not the truth. We don't need to be clean to approach him. He makes us clean. So if you're in this place this morning and you're struggling with God's view of you and you're just feeling unclean, cling to the truth of what this says. And he says, all the more come to me just as you are, because I want to help you become clean. The reality is we cannot be clean without him. He wants us to be in his presence. Let's pick up in the story in verse 27. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I'll be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped and she felt in her body that she was free from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized the power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? You see, people are crowding against you, his disciple answered, and yet you can ask who touched me? But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering. Beautiful story, but I'm sure that there were people in that crowd that witnessed this and were like, hold on, that's not the way it works. If she touched you, then now you're unclean, Jesus. And it begs the question, if you drop the soap, is the soap dirty or is the floor clean? Essentially, that's exactly what's happening here. That mentality that they have, they were caught in this mindset, and they even had laws that said anything that touched a dead person or a diseased person made them unclean. That was the law. And Jesus was flipping that mentality. But ritual cleansing, that was a big deal back then. If you look at Leviticus 15 and Numbers 19, they had rules against touching a dead person and touching a deceased person. So in Leviticus chapter 15, a woman in her uncleanness, if you will, is considered contagious. Whoever came in contact with her, or matter of fact, if somebody sat in the seat that she just sat in, they're unclean as well. And they would have had to go bathe in a pool called a mikvah. And then after they did that, they still wouldn't be clean until evening. And they wouldn't be allowed to go to temple. They wouldn't be able to do all these things. And to touch a dead person, we'll see that later in the story by Jesus. Numbers 19 tells us that will be 7 days of him not being clean. Not just to the evening, that's 7 days. It took courage for her to approach Jesus in the midst of that crowd, knowing that she was unclean. But I think it took more courage for her to come back to Jesus after she had been healed. She didn't just get healed and I'm out of here. No, she went before Jesus and she fell right at his feet and just trembling with fear, telling him the whole truth. She humbled herself. I absolutely love Jesus' response here. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. For 12 years, she was shunned. She was an outcast. I imagine emotions were just shut down to a point. Nobody cares about me. Nobody even wants to be near me. And yet Jesus responds to her, daughter, how amazing that must have felt to feel like you're now included in something. I'm included in Jesus' family now. He referenced me as daughter, not that woman. Get away from me. That must have felt incredible. But in the midst of all of this going on, somebody from Jairus' house comes. Look at verse 35. While Jesus was still speaking, some people came up from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? This isn't in my sermon, but I kind of feel like I need to say it anyway. We have to be careful not to have that mentality. That we have our trials going on and they just kind of seem to continue, and you prayed about it and you not seeing an answer, and things just maybe even seem to get worse, and you say, why bother anymore? We have to be careful not to have that mentality, but to trust and keep moving forward with Jesus. So verse 36, overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, don't be afraid, just believe. And that's our second step in our stop, drop, and roll this morning, is to trust. You fall and then you trust. Don't be afraid, just believe. Imagine if you're Jairus at this point. You have faith that he can heal your daughter, and you go to him and you ask him for help. And then he takes the time to talk to this woman and to heal this woman. If you're Jairus, aren't you like, dude, come on. Jesus, my daughter, I really need you right now. Please, you're getting distracted. Like, I need you to come with me. And sure enough, in the midst of that, somebody comes and says, your daughter has died. And Jesus' response is, don't be afraid, just believe. I think sometimes we can believe, but we're still afraid. We're living in this place of fear. I believe Jesus can do it, but what if he doesn't? Or I have this guilt about a sin in my life or something in the past, so what if that keeps him from doing it? What if? What if? We play this what if game. So I believe he can, but I'm still afraid. Notice that he never tells Jairus, trust me, she'll be fine. That would have made his faith contingent on a result. He says something more demanding and more honest, because fear and faith cannot occupy the same posture. Saying, Jairus, pick one. Keep walking with me to your house. Don't be afraid. Just believe. Trust me. 1 Peter 5:7. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you. In that verse, Peter is writing about exactly what Jesus told Jairus. Give it to God. Trust him. All of our anxieties. Sometimes I'm going to give you this one, God, and this one, but that one is, I have a hard time letting that one go. How much do you think this water bottle weighs? 2 ounces. Okay. How much now? Here's the thing about this water bottle. It really doesn't matter how much that water bottle weighs if I'm holding it. I can hold it for a minute and my arm is just fine, right? Not heavy at all. If I hold it for a couple of hours, it's going to start to feel heavy. It's going to start to weigh down and my arm's going to get sore. If I just obsess on holding that and I don't let it go and I'm going for days and weeks, my arm's going to go numb and it's going to feel paralyzed, isn't it? We do the same thing with our stresses, our anxieties, our worries, all of that. If we hang on to it for an hour, okay. We hang on to it for hours or days, it starts to feel pretty heavy, doesn't it? And if we're being honest, probably even heavier than it actually is. And if I don't let it go at all and I just let it control me, then I start losing sleep and I'm living in this place of fear and anxiety and worry. And honestly, I feel paralyzed. We need to let it go and to trust God. And stop feeling like we have to hang on to that ourselves. Especially when he's saying to do it. Hey, what do you know? Biblical principles. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, and he will lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Again, this is more true than what I feel. I've got this stuff going on in my life, and I'm tempted to get mad at God about it, or I'm tempted to think that he's mad at me. And if we look at this and say, don't let all of those insecurities and lies get in the way, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. Even when you look in the mirror and you say, I don't even like myself today, his love is different. Many of you here today are struggling with your own personal fires, and they just feel like they're weighing on you. They're weighing you down. But let's be honest for a second. Giving God that worry, saying, God, I need help with this that's going in my life right now, whatever it is that you thought of this morning when I asked that question, what do you need help with? If I give that to God, does it mean it's going to go away? Not always. That's where the trust comes in. The fire isn't necessarily going to go out, but giving it to God and trusting him allows us to see through the smoke and to not suffocate until he reveals to us what it is he is doing through that situation. When Jesus and Jairus are walking back to his house and he knows that his daughter is dead, I imagine that was an incredibly long, heavy walk. You want to believe, but you're just not sure how God's going to work. The same thing is true in our lives. God, I believe that you can help me in this area, but I need you to lay out the steps on how you're going to do that for me. Can we be on the same page here? Because then I can have faith. Then I can have faith in who you are because you reveal to me how you're going to work through that situation. That's not faith and that's not trust. Trusting isn't about believing the fire's going to go out. It's about trusting in who God is and that he's going to work through the situation to grow us and stretch us and ultimately bring us closer to him. I'm getting a track here, guys. I would love it every time I preach if music just started playing. I also wish I had a cool Australian accent or something. This place would be, it always sounds better. You know it would be packed. We know that that fire is ultimately going to bring us closer to him. I've shared this quote with you many times, but it's one of my favorites, so here it goes again. Better is the presence of the Lord in the midst of a trial than to have no trial at all. And I would rather just have stuff falling down around me, but to feel God there with me, comforting me, walking with me, giving me strength, than to have no problems at all. I want that presence of the Lord. And acknowledging that presence of the Lord, seeking him, giving him our worries and anxiety, that presence of the Lord changes our perspective. It changes who we are. My own prayer as I go through my own personal fires again and again, as we all do, is this: Lord, I hope I come out on the other side looking a little bit more like you. I have to give purpose to my trial, to focus on, I can't just, oh, woe is me, here it goes again. No, God, I want to meet you in that place, knowing that you are going to work through this trial in me and through me. God, rather than scream, why me the whole time, I want to meet you in that place and say, God, how can I join you in that work? God, use this. I want to acknowledge that you're at work. I want to acknowledge you're here with me. Use this, and I pray that on the other side, I'm just a little bit more like you. Purpose to the pain. Let's keep moving. Look at verse 37. He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw the commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all the commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." But they laughed at him. So for the sake of the sermon this morning, I'm going to take a little sidestep just to give you a little bit of historical context, help us understand maybe why they were laughing at him. The concept of professional mourners goes back thousands of years. And they have records of each culture maybe doing it a little bit differently. But by the time Jesus had come around, it actually had become law. So when you had somebody die in your family, you were required to hire at least 2 flutes and 1 woman to be there as professional wailers. Even if you were poor and you had no money, you were required by law to have a minimum of 2 flutes and 1 woman there. And if you had money, that just upped the ante. If you had money, then you need to have 10 flutes and 10 wailers. Your level of income was supposed to match your level of crying and wailing. Just the fact that these people went from mourning and wailing to laughing at Jesus shows you that they were not in a place of grief. They were just doing their jobs. We see this all the time. Of course she's dead. And the word that the author uses to describe sending them out, putting them outside, is the same word that's used for casting out the demons. Okay, step back into the sermon. Look at the verse 40 with me. But they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went to where the child was. He took her by the hand and said, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. A couple things that I want to highlight that I don't want us to miss. First, it's how Jesus is speaking to her. Talitha cum. That's actually Aramaic. It's not Greek. There was 2 languages spoken in that culture. There would have been Greek. And Greek they used in the synagogue or in the marketplace. Then there was Aramaic. And that was the everyday at home language. We're in the kitchen talking. That's when they spoke Aramaic. And the term that he uses, Talitha cum, can actually be translated to little lamb. He's speaking to her in the everyday at home language with a term of endearment that a father would have used towards a child, saying, "Little lamb, little girl, get up." But notice what happened. She got up and began to walk around immediately. And Jesus says, "Get her something to eat." I love this so much because it shows that Jesus is being relational and practical. So this little girl was dead. She could have climbed back into bed and said, "I'm going to rest a little while because I was dead. I just need to lay down for a little bit. Just give me 5. Why is that significant? Because I think sometimes we do that with God. God works in our lives, and yet we go back to the place we once were where he brought us out of. We go back to bed. And that's our last step in our stop, drop, and roll this morning, and that is rise. Don't go back to bed. Sometimes we get so used to that hard trial that we get comfortable in it. As much as we want to be free from it, even when Jesus does this amazing thing and works through it and even frees us from it, we still don't live as if he had. Maybe he helped you overcome a sin in your life, but you go right back to the places and situations where you'll be tempted to fall right back into that sin, to go right back into bed. Has anybody ever met somebody like this where it becomes their identity? We get so used to feeling like everything's burning around us that does become our identity. Our struggles define who we are rather than letting our identity be grounded in Christ. And every word out of their mouth is about their trials and their struggles. And it's not about God and who he is and what he's doing even through it, but it's the woe is me. This is who I am. I'm the person that struggles with this. Even when he tries to work through it, we're so comfortable in that place that we just say, I'm going to stay in bed because I was dead. You know, I almost called this sermon Eat Breakfast. Sometimes I think that God has done something incredible in our lives. He brought you out of a situation, helped you put out that fire. Now you just don't know what to do. What are my next steps?
Praise the Lord.
The next step is to eat breakfast. To do everyday life until God reveals the next step to you. Keep moving. Spiritual obedience isn't always about parting the Red Sea or starting a ministry. Often it's about just doing the everyday, mundane thing, even when you feel like giving up. It's saying, I'm going to stay out of bed. And I'm just going to keep living my life with Jesus until he reveals the next step to me. Eat breakfast. It's about keeping moving forward. It's about trust. But something really important that we always need to look at when we're going through any passage is asking ourselves, why was this written? What was the author's intent in putting this passage in the Bible? In this passage, this was written to show that Jesus had authority over ritual exclusion, over disease, and even death. And that brings us to our take-home truth. Jesus' authority is not bound by our expectations or circumstances. As much as we want to try to put him in that box and say he will or won't do this or he can't use me anymore. Look at how many mistakes I've made in my life. His authority is not bound by our expectations or circumstances. His power is not limited by what you can imagine he can do. His love is not limited by what you think you deserve. His authority is not bound by the rules this world has handed you. He healed a woman the religious system had cast out. He raised a girl the professional mourners had already mentally buried. He flipped the entire purity code on its head. And Cornerstone, he is the same Jesus this morning. It goes back to not putting God in a box. His power is limitless, and so is his love. So I ask you this morning, again, what do you need God's help with this morning? Humble yourself. Fall at his feet, acknowledging all that he is, having the right picture of who he's proven himself to be. Trust in who he is. His power, his love, his mercy, his grace, his authority over everything. Give it to him. Trust him. And let us rise. Ask God, as God works in our lives, let us live our lives as a result of who he is and what he is doing. He has done something and we need to live accordingly. Today we looked at two individuals who had their own personal fires. You had a woman that was bleeding for 12 years, and that was kind of like this smoldering, long drawn out, eroding away at everything. And then you have Jairus, that was just like a flashbang, everything all at once. And both their responses were the same: run to Jesus. And the whole point of this passage is to show us Jesus, to show us who he really is and what he's capable of. It went against everything this world said it should be, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? We're not supposed to be of this world. Amen. Let's respond differently. In this world, when it feels like we're under attack and things are burning around us, let us fall, trust, and rise. You'll see in your bulletin I included a little card. Some of you cheated and used that to fill out your bulletin notes early. That's okay. You know who you are. There's a little card in there. It's going to ask you 3 questions. And as you look at that, what do you need God's help with today? What do you need to let go of? Here's the thing, I get it. I'm going to ask you to take this home and fill it out, and you're going to put it in your Bible, and then you're not going to think about it again. Some of you are already thinking about, why isn't Chick-fil-A open today? I want to ask you to take this home and fill it out. To humble yourself before the Lord and say, Lord, this is what I need your help with. And to hang on to that card and pray over it and come back to it and see how God is working in and through your trials. And I would love to hear the stories of how God is going to work through it. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, it feels so good to laugh, even when it feels like there's so many hard things going on. And the only reason that we can do that is because we have a hope. You are our hope. And I pray this morning as we come before you and fall at your feet, that we humble ourselves, that we strip ourselves of our pride and our guilt and our shame, our insecurities, and see who you really are, who you've proven yourself to be. Lord, I pray that we have that correct image in our hearts and that we trust you, that we let go of the lies of this world and the what ifs and just say, Lord, because of who you are, and I trust you. And as you work through all of that, Lord, I pray that you give us the wisdom and courage and strength to get up. When you pull us out of bed, Lord, I pray that we don't go back. I pray that you do continue to work in us and through us and show us those steps, but until you do that, sometimes we just need to eat breakfast. And that's where we need the wisdom and courage. But Lord, I ask for that overwhelming sense of your presence to be on each one of my friends here this morning, Lord, and that we can worship you for all that you are as we fall, trust, and rise. Amen.